You can't even do household chores, so we might as well divorce, and you better give me your assets too." As soon as he entered a hospital room, Tom said this to me with a smirk, even though I was connected to many tubes. A girl I didn't recognize stood by his side. "Tom doesn't know that I have assets worth $6 million. He should understand that a divorce in this situation would be a matter of life and death for a housewife like me." Fine, he has the divorce papers. I couldn't be with a man who verbally abused his wife in such a state. I pulled out the divorce papers I always carried with me and handed them to Tom, grinning. He accepted them. "Now I can say goodbye to you. I'll be happy with her, so don't worry, right, Catherine?" Saying this, Tom wrapped his arm around that girl's waist, that girl referred to as Catherine Linden, and sneered at me. "Take care, Mrs. Oh, you're not Mrs. anymore. Take care, ma'am." At her words, the two of them left the hospital room laughing. But their happiness would only last for now. Alone in the room, I laughed out loud. Today is Friday, so the divorce will be processed on Monday. Oh, I cannot wait for 3 days from now. My name is Emily Johnson. I'm a 45-year-old housewife. My family runs a regular farm. I don't have any particular skills, but the one thing I'm proud of is my vast cooking repertoire. My husband, Tom, is the same age as me, and we were college classmates. Both of us came to New York from the countryside. Since we both lived alone, I used to cook various dishes for Tom using the vegetables and rice sent from my family. People often said I had captured his heart through his stomach, and I was aware of that. Tom was and still is incapable of doing any household chores. I've been taking care of him since we were dating, and after getting married, I continued to handle all household tasks. Sadly, we were not blessed with children, but we enjoyed our life together as a couple. We both loved to eat, and on Tom's days off, we'd often go on drives for small trips just to enjoy delicious food. When we first got married, Tom was kind, but about 3 years in, he became quite controlling. While he never laid a hand on me, his remarks became curt, and he would often say, "Whose money do you think we're living on?" It would be a lie to say those words didn't hurt, but I didn't have the energy to fight back, assuming he wouldn't listen anyway. Because I was a full-time housewife, I felt inferior and couldn't stand up to him. Tom joined a renowned company after graduating from university, but he resigned after about 5 years. He quickly found new jobs, but would resign from them after short periods. Because of this, our income was unstable. We managed by searching for money-saving tips, but often struggled with our finances. However, at the company he'd been with for the past 2 years, he seemed to get along with his colleagues. I had faint hopes that he might work there for a long time. Then one day, Tom came home earlier than usual. "I'm home. I quit my job." "What, again?" Unintentionally, I voiced my surprise, causing Tom's eyebrows to twitch. In a panic, I stopped cooking and rushed over to him. "I'm sorry. I was just shocked." "Huh. No welcome back greeting, and you're criticizing what I do. You've become quite audacious." At Tom's words, I stiffened. Tom was in a very bad mood today. If I misspoke, it could escalate into something worse. "I'm sorry." "As long as you understand." It seemed my apology had somewhat placated him. With a display of his displeasure, Tom sat on the sofa and turned on the TV. I quietly placed the beer and glass on the table. "Do you want dinner or bath?" "Food and alcohol." "Understood." To avoid upsetting Tom, I played the role of submissive wife. I once had a strong sense of self, but after 14 years of marriage to Tom since the age of 28, I rarely showed my true self. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Tom fell asleep snoring on the sofa. The table was so messy, it looked like a child had eaten there. I cleaned up the fallen beer bottles and food scraps scattered on the floor. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Recalling my dreams of a happy married life from my girlhood days, my true feelings slipped out as I glanced at Tom suddenly, but he showed no signs of waking. Relief washed over me, but I also felt dread about continuing this life. Perhaps I should consider divorce. I began mentally organizing my schedule for the next day. determined to confront the issues I had been avoiding. The next day, Tom started visiting the employment office and quickly secured another job. While he was job hunting, I went to the city office and signed divorce papers. I wasn't ready to submit them, but I thought having them would be a kind of protection. I hid the signed divorce papers at the bottom of my frequently used bag. If he discovered them, there's no telling what he might say or do. "Hey, where did you wander off to while I was job hunting?" Tom asked upon my return. "I went to the stationery store to buy some resumes. Look, I thought you might need them," I replied. "Well, I knew you were unusually thoughtful today," Tom said, initially interrogating me suspiciously, but quickly cheering up. I handed him the resumes I had previously bought. After receiving them, Tom said he was going out for drinks with a friend and left. Tom's new job was at a reputable company with a solid salary and better benefits than anywhere he'd worked before. When he got promoted after working there for about 3 years, he happily had a drink at night. I secretly hoped that maybe this time he would work there until retirement. Tom's department seemed to be in sales, and he started to leave home more frequently for evening entertainment. I enjoyed my brief moments of freedom and gathered energy to greet Tom with a smile when he returned. One day, I received a call from my mother after a long time. Hearing her excited story, I was taken aback. $6 million, she said. "Yes, 6 million. You know the mountains and lands we owned? We don't need them anymore. We had them appraised, and they are worth 8 million. We only need 1 million to enjoy the rest of our lives, so I think you might want to rethink your life too." My mother was never fond of Tom. She was worried about me, especially after Tom became more and more controlling, preventing me from even visiting my childhood home. I was stunned by the amount she mentioned. Furthermore, I was shocked to learn that when my mother inherited the property from my grandmother, she changed the title to my name so there were no inheritance taxes. "It's better not to tell Tom," my mother advised before hanging up the phone. I felt conflicted between the urge to immediately inform Tom and the desire to live freely with that money. About a week later, I was involved in a traffic accident. Thankfully, my life wasn't in danger, but I'd need to be hospitalized for about a week. After storing my valuables in the hospital room drawer, I immediately contacted Tom. "I'm sorry I got injured," I said. "Huh, what about my meals?" I almost cited Tom's reaction, prioritizing his meals over my injury, but I continued to explain. "It seems I'll need to be hospitalized for a week. I'm really sorry, but could you buy your meals elsewhere until then?" "Not even preparing meals for your husband. What a lazy wife. Oh, wait, there, I'm coming over now," Tom said, unilaterally ending the call. I was planning to tell him about the inheritance tonight, but now I thought it might be best not to mention it. Looking at all the tubes attached to me during this precautionary examination, I somehow had a feeling soon enough I'd come to realize that my intuition was right. "You're useless, can't even do housework. Let's get a divorce, and you better pay me compensation too." As soon as he entered the room, Tom, with a smirk on his face, said this to me, who was connected to several tubes. Beside him stood a girl I didn't recognize. Tom wasn't aware that my total assets amounted to 6 million. He should know that a divorce under these circumstances would be a life and death matter for me, a housewife. "Fine, here's the divorce papers. A man who would hurl abuse at his wife in this condition is someone I'd rather not have." I handed Tom the divorce papers I had kept as a sort of charm. Tom took them with a smug smile on his face. "With this, I can finally say goodbye to you. I'm going to be happy with her, right, Catherine?" Saying this, Tom wrapped his arm around the girl's waist. The girl named Catherine leaned against Tom and scoffed at me. "Take care, madam. Oh, you're not a madam anymore, so take care, old lady." With those words, the two of them left the room laughing. But the joy would be short-lived. Left alone in my room, I burst out laughing. Today is Friday, so the divorce papers would only be processed on Monday. Oh, I cannot wait for 3 days from now. Just as I had expected, the weekend went by without any contact from Tom, and it was quite peaceful. I was restless, not used to doing nothing since getting married. Every time I became restless, the nurses would tell me to stay calm. Then on Monday evening, I received a barrage of calls from Tom. I initially ignored them, but after about 30 minutes of incessant ringing, I decided to answer. Could you not be so persistent? Hey, what's the meaning of this? As soon as I picked up, Tom shouted at me. I couldn't help but laugh. Tom seemed infuriated by my laughter and was screaming incoherently. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The divorce papers aren't being accepted, are they? Thomas fumed on the other side of the phone, huffing and puffing. I continued to chuckle and responded to his complaint. Oh, I had previously filed a non-acceptance notification. Remember how you used to say, "Let's get divorced," every time we had a fight? I thought it wouldn't be good if you filed for divorce on a whim during one of our arguments. Ugh, but I don't need that now. Withdraw it immediately, Tom said for a moment, but then quickly gave another order. But now that things had come to this, I was no longer just going to listen to everything Tom said. I can't do that until I'm discharged. We need to go through procedures at the municipal office, I replied. Then discharge now. Don't be unreasonable. His utterly selfish demands made me laugh even more. He probably wanted to register his marriage with Catherine, whom he brought on Friday. Thomas was clearly panicking. By the way, was her name Catherine? She's your mistress, right? Hey, that's rude to Catherine. Apologize. She's my new wife. We are not divorced yet, so she's technically your mistress, isn't she? Tom responded. Responding calmly to Tom's nonsensical remarks, Tom made a weird groaning sound. I decided to hit him where it hurt the most. By the way, you'll hear from my lawyer about the division of property. That's right, property, including the trouble this time. You better share properly. I'm not sure why he misunderstood, but Tom suddenly sounded in her spirits. After all, the responsible party has to pay the compensation. I had always done my household chores diligently, and of course, I had never cheated on him. It's clear as day that Tom is a responsible party. What are you misunderstanding? You're the one who has to give me the assets. What? Tom responded with a voice that genuinely didn't understand. He likely believed that by not taking care of him while I was hospitalized, I would truly be at fault. Even in my parents' age, one wouldn't be deemed at fault for such a reason. As I bitterly thought this, I explained to him patiently, "What fault of mine are you talking about? Just to let you know, not being able to do housework because of my hospitalization doesn't make me the one at fault. You've abandoned taking care of me. If you were a child, it would be considered child neglect, but you're an adult and should be able to take care of yourself. That's why it doesn't make me at fault. If I say you're at fault, then you are at fault." Even a judge would be shocked by his baffling logic. My mental image of myself took a huge face fall. Was he really taking me so lightly to think such childish reasoning would work? Finally get it. Don't you know what's legally defined as grounds for fault? Being at fault would mean, for instance, infidelity like having another woman despite having a wife. That's why Catherine is my new wife, and you're no longer of any use to me, so it doesn't apply, right? What are you talking about? Since you are dating her behind my back, it's clearly cheating. Tom still doesn't seem to understand. He was set on believing that he was right. Either way, please communicate through a lawyer from now on. Goodbye. Hey, Emily. I hung up the phone without listening to Tom's protest. He called multiple times, but when I ignored him, he eventually seemed to give up and fell silent. I was relieved, but the next day, another headache-inducing event occurred. Feeling frustrated by the non-stop ringing from 9 in the morning, I pressed the call button. On the other end, Thomas was complaining at me like a machine gun firing. I wasn't quite sure what he was saying at first, but piecing it together, it seemed he was complaining about not being able to withdraw money from a bank account. If it's a joint account, Tom should be able to withdraw without any issue. But if not... I recalled the bank cards and passbooks I had left at home and asked Tom, "Were you trying to take money from my account by any chance?" "Exactly. You're still in the hospital, and I was going to take the money into account, but the card won't work." Tom raged on with his unreasonable argument. It seems he didn't understand what I said yesterday. When I was scheduled to be hospitalized for a week, I had called the bank and requested they prevent withdrawals until I could personally handle it after being discharged. It was to prevent Tom, who's reckless with money, from depleting my savings in my absence. My decision was proven right. It's unthinkable to try to withdraw money from the account of an ex-wife you've divorced. However, Tom didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with it and asked me to make a withdrawal immediately. "What are you talking about? We are practically strangers now. Why would I do as you say? The fact that you and my life hasn't changed, even if you're getting divorced. Act like a proper wife and listen to me. We are just not legally divorced yet, but we are already strangers. Got it? Unfortunately, I don't have money to give to strangers." Thompson was shocked over the phone since I had never resisted him this much before, but he quickly became assertive again. "Just do as I say. Send the money now. Pay the compensation for not doing housework." Even though he was academically capable when we first met, sadly, he seemed to lack common sense. 17 years into her marriage, it was confirmed that I had made a poor choice in a partner. Tom seemed frustrated that I wasn't giving in. He likely had exhausted his cash on hand and probably dipped into the living expenses. I had left at home and from our shared account. I spoke to Tom as if I was talking to a small child. "Listen, I'm no longer your submissive wife. We'll settle the property division through a lawyer later on." "What? You're so insolent. I'm coming over right now. Just wait." Saying so, Tom hung up the phone. "I don't mind if he comes to the hospital, but I've already asked the nurses' station not to let anyone in except for my parents, so it's unlikely he'll make it to my room." Tom really did come to the hospital, but as expected, he seemed to have been stopped at the nurses' station. My phone kept ringing, but after ignoring it for a while, it switched to messages, and my screen was flooded with notifications. I saved all of them as evidence and contacted my lawyer. After a while, it seemed that the lawyer had gotten in touch with Tom, as the messages stopped coming in. I thought it was the end, but my hopes were about to be dashed. "There's a visitor named Karen. Would you like to see her?" "Karen, please let him." Karen was a friend who shared my hobbies back when I was single. We became close after she responded to my posts on a social media platform where I kept records of my dining experiences. We discovered we lived nearby and often went out to eat together. After getting married, while I couldn't dine out as much due to saving money, we kept in touch by regularly meeting for tea and chats. "Emily, are you okay from the injury?" "Yes, I'm feeling much better now, thank you." As Karen immediately expressed her concern upon entering the room, I felt the warmth in my heart. I realized that since my hospitalization, aside from my parents and hospital staff, no one had shown concern for me. "Hey, Emily, things are tough for you right now, aren't they?" "Huh? Why?" I hadn't told anyone about my situation other than my parents. I wondered how Karen knew and asked her, intrigued. Karen then said something shocking. "You know Catherine, the young girl, right? She's having an affair with your husband, isn't she?" "What? How do you know about—" "Wait, you know her?" "Actually, she's my niece." I was so surprised by Karen's hesitant answer that I couldn't close my mouth. Who would have thought that Karen was Catherine's aunt? The room went silent. It was the first time there was silence when Karen was around, and it made me feel uneasy. You see, Catherine suddenly told her mother, my sister, that she's getting married. And what's more shocking is that her partner is 45 years old. When I saw the photo, it was your husband. I was so surprised. I've already told my sister, "I'm so sorry for all the trouble my niece has caused you, Emily." Don't apologize, Karen. It's not your fault. Karen looked like she was about to cry. I'm thinking of demanding compensation from Catherine. I can't compromise on that. But if I do, does this mean our relationship will end? Of course not. I want to continue being friends with you, Emily. I'll make sure Catherine pays compensation. Neither my sister nor I can forgive what she's done. We'll keep a close eye on her. I was very grateful for Karen's words. We've been friends for over 20 years. I didn't want to lose a precious friend because of my terrible husband and his mistress. I've scheduled a meeting with them tomorrow, and I'd like you to come with me. Of course I'll be there, and I can also provide photos as evidence of their affair. The next day, fresh from being discharged from the hospital, I went to a private restaurant room with my lawyer. Tom and Catherine had already arrived and were indulging in an expensive traditional meal. I was speechless at the audacity. You finally made it. Did you bring the money? Remember, you are paying for this meal. Tom said this to me without even stopping his meal. Catherine beside him continued to eat with a smug on her face. I decided to fight back. Please handle the payment yourselves. Moreover, I came here to demand sharing the assets from the two of you. How long are you going to sulk? You're really unattractive. Ignoring Tom's rude remarks, my lawyer and I took our seats and showed evidence proving Tom's fault. We first presented legal documents regarding the reasons for liability, followed by documents on property division. Lastly, we showed the photos given by Karen, which showed Catherine and Tom, as well as Catherine with an unknown man entering a hotel. Wait, why? Hey, Catherine, what is this? Tom and Catherine were visibly shaken by the photos, and they finally stopped eating. Just then, Karen made her timely entrance. I took those photos. What, Karen? Catherine seemed confused as to why her aunt was present. Karen, with cold eyes, looked down on Catherine and Tom and calmly spoke about being friends with me for 20 years and how their actions were utterly despicable. Also, Catherine, you mentioned that the baby you're carrying is his, but given your actions, who knows who the father is? Wait, no, I was hearing about her pregnancy for the first time, and judging by her appearance today, one could never guess she was pregnant. However, judging by Tom's reaction, it seems she did claim to be pregnant. So you're pregnant. In that case, after a DNA test, I'll demand an additional penalty. No, I'm sorry, I lied about the pregnancy. Please forgive me. Catherine suddenly admitted this and bowed deeply. She had been searching for wealthy old men, and Tom was the wallet she called. He bought her designer goods, and she was promised a life where she wouldn't have to work and could do as she pleased after her marriage. She believed she could be a housewife and occasionally have flings with men of her choice. She had once lied about being pregnant because he showed no signs of wanting to divorce. Tom froze with his mouth agape when he heard this. I'm truly sorry, but I can't give you anything. I don't have the money. I'll pay Emily in advance. You're going to work part-time diligently every month and repay me. You won't have any time for leisure until you've paid me back in full. Oh no. Catherine was ugly, disheartened. Karen mentioned she'd bring Catherine again later for another apology and took her out of the restaurant. Tom was in shock the entire time, but seemed to snap back to reality and approached me in a flattering tone. Look, it seems I was deceived. I can live without Emily, right? We still have the divorce papers here. Can we start over? You've always been a housewife, so you can't possibly work now, can you? I listened to Tom's plea with a cold gaze, none of which moved me. However, I waited for him to finish before answering with a smile. I can live just fine without you. I'll be taking the divorce papers and filing them shortly. Also, I never mentioned this, but my personal net worth is currently around $6 million, so I can live comfortably without working for the rest of my life. Rest assured. $6 million? Why did you keep such a fortune a secret? I was about to tell you when you started making a fuss about divorce. I'll definitely get some of your assets, and this money is my personal inheritance, so it doesn't count towards marital assets. It has nothing to do with you, right? Tom looked at me with a face of utter despair. My lawyer quickly produced some documents and a pen for Tom to sign. The lawyer and I then left and immediately filed for divorce, ending our almost 20-year marriage. Later, Catherine transferred some of her money to my account. According to Karen, upon learning of this incident, Catherine's mother was furious. She made Catherine take a leave from university and work non-stop at her relative's inn until she prepared the compensation. Tom, on the other hand, was disowned by his in-laws after they learned about the divorce. He was told he didn't receive any assistance, so he reluctantly took out a loan and paid me in one lump sum. Furthermore, it was revealed that he had been with Catherine at a hotel during work hours. He was fired from his job and is now juggling multiple construction jobs to repay his debts. As for me, even after receiving such a large sum, I didn't know what to spend it on, so I donated a portion to charity. I then moved to the countryside with the remaining money and am now enjoying a luxurious single life. I've continued my relationship with Karen. On our days off, we go on food tours and short trips. We both plan to stay single, so I suggested maybe we should share a room. Initially hesitant, Karen agreed when I mentioned we could share deliveries and she could join my meals. I am excited as the moving preparations will start next week. I want to live my life joyfully and true to myself from now on.